Hey, everybody, hope everyone's doing well today. I just want to take a few minutes and talk through what we're doing currently here at Ombra. Many of you guys have heard me talk before about all the SBIRs that we do. Um, and those are our Small Business Innovator Research Program grants. We've been pretty successful over the last 6 years or so. We've had over 20 phase one grants and about four phase twos that are direct to Ombra. We've also been a subcontractor on about 24 other efforts. So I'll kind of talk through that a little bit. I'll explain what we're working on right now and how I think that could be useful to everybody that's out there kind of following the stream. So SBIR, Small Business Innovator Research, and the Small Business Tech Transfer is a program that's been around for a very long time. First started working with it back in 2004 when I started down at Special Operations Command as a government support contractor, as a Battelle engineer. We were writing topics back then based on the areas of need that we were going after. At that time, it was a lot of biometrics work, and then kind of subsequently, as I became a government program manager, the SBIR program managers would come up and ask us if we had any ideas that we could help them write up in terms of topics for their broad agency announcements. Those were things that were, going to be futuristic concepts. Maybe there wasn't a big R requirement for it, but there was still some interest in terms of building out the technology. So we would write these concepts, which were topics, and then hopefully get those funded as those kind of competed amongst the other program executive officers within the building. So at one point, I went down and I worked on the Ironman suit, also known as the Talos suit. A pretty exciting project, but early on, we basically decided we'd go out and we'd find small businesses that have already won the phase one, and I'll talk about that in a second. And then we went out and awarded them a phase two contract, which is really the prototyping phase. And so that was a great opportunity just to cold call businesses that might be interested in working with Special Operations Command, and then get to work on an Ironman suit. And so there's some great stories there. But essentially, the phase one is a proof of concept feasibility study. The phase two is where you actually get to build the prototype system. And so in that particular case, we were calling out exoskeleton companies that might be able to build an exoskeleton for the Ironman suit. So pretty neat stuff there. Subsequently, when I went to work for another company, I was trying to work with other small businesses. We were not eligible at the time because we were too large. We were larger than 500 employees. And so we started working with small businesses and trying to see if we could participate in the SBR program as a subcontractor. And that really led me into what we do here at Ombra. So we write a lot of proposals. We've been very successful in terms of the number of contracts we've been awarded across the Army, the Air Force. We've been subcontractor on the Navy and SOCOM. And so great opportunities there. And our projects are super broad. We've got everything from underwater adhesives to space contracts. So right now we're in what I refer to as proposal writing season. We're writing a lot of phase one proposals. Again, things that where you may be looking to develop to prove the feasibility that something's possible. I just dropped in the chat, the website of where you would go to find some of these opportunities. Some of these are open topics, which are kind of newer, probably in the 2018 timeframe when the Air Force's AFWERX come up with this concept. Instead of a specific topic, we would have an open topic. If you have whatever idea you have, you can go out there and submit that. So we've worked with companies that have flying dune buggy. We've done adhesives. We've worked on space projects, all kinds of great projects, very exciting things. And so right now we're writing a couple. One is an SBIR and one is an STTR. And the difference between an SBIR and STTR essentially is that with the STTR, you need to actually work with a research institute, and there's a certain percentage that they have to receive of the funding in phase one and phase two. And so anyway, so we're working on SBIR and STTR open topics right now for the Air Force. So we'll submit to both of those. And then we've got a variety of specific topics where the Air Force or maybe the Navy has come up with an idea that they want us to help build. Those are all located at the SBIR website, DoD's website there, called CITIS. And that's where you can actually see all the different topics. So most of these are open right now, and not to be confused with the other open concept of where you just come up with an idea. This particular open means that we're in the period in the solicitation phase where you can't actually go back to the government and ask questions directly. We could have done that during the pre-solicitation period, and we did that. We met with some of the technical point of contacts. We had questions for them and decided which proposals we were going to write based on the outcomes of those particular conversations. So anyway, so right now where we're at is we're diligently writing proposals, which could lead to our team working on a 10-page written Word document. It could be a 20-pager. It could be 25 slides. It really depends on the solicitation. So you really got to read the solicitation to understand what you need. You have to upload your proposals into the DSIP database or website, I should say, and then those have to be in by the deadline. The big thing to keep in mind is late is late. So if you're late on submitting your proposals, it won't get evaluated. If you're page over and it says it's 20 pages and you write 21 pages, it won't get evaluated. If you're missing a document, it won't get evaluated. So really pay attention to what's in the solicitation. I always tell my team, read the solicitation because all the answers are really there, and the solicitations change every single time, and they're different between the agencies. So maybe the Army is looking for 20 pages and the Navy is looking for 10 pages, and they're looking for different things. And so it's just really important to read the solicitation and get those in. And so, our process right now is essentially during the pre-solicitation period, pre-release is what it's called. We'll read the different topics. We'll determine whether or not we have some technology that we think is applicable to the topic, or whether or not we have a relationship or skill set, or whether we can build relationships. And then we'll come up with a concept, and then we'll go and we'll ask the TPOC questions about what their intent was. And then based on that, we'll all come back and we have integrated product teams that are focused in different technology areas, artificial intelligence, communications, are a couple of them. We have a detection IPT as well. And so they'll all pitch their concepts to senior management, and we'll decide whether or not we're going to spend the bid and proposal dollars on going after these particular efforts. And so we've already completed that. Our team is working really hard right now over the next 10 or so days to get a bunch of these proposals in. And so we'll build the technical portion. We're building the cost volumes, trying to estimate what the cost is going to be, building relationships for the STTRs. Obviously, we need to partner with a research institute, so making sure that we have the allocation of rights in place. All our NDAs are in place, non-disclosure agreements, that is. And so those are, all the required kind of documents that we need to put together and then load them all into the government system. And then, before it's due, we hit the submit button and we kind of wait and see. Other key things I think are important is, once you get your evaluation, obviously you'd like to win, but the odds are that you'll probably not. The win rates are about 12% on phase one, and it's about 20% on a STTR. So the numbers are with the STTRs, but you have to give some of that revenue away. So kind of figuring out what's in the best interest of your organization. So, odds are you're not going to win every one. Figuring out what your win rate is based on the number of proposals you submit. But the next important thing is really getting feedback, and it's called a debrief. So always asking for a debrief, trying to find out, what did you do well? What did you not do so well? Typically it's technical, it's cost, and it's past performance. It could be commercialization. These are all things that we're looking at. And so if you don't win, then go ahead and look at your proposal, after you get a notification, and maybe, 60, 90, 180 days, and, look at the proposal and say, hey, what could I have done better? The next time I write, it's really a practice of evaluating your proposals and figuring out what exactly you need to do to get better on the next round. So if you do win, that's great. Depending on the effort, sometimes it's a 3-month effort, sometimes it's a 6-month effort. And oftentimes you're competing with other folks. And so you want to do your very best during that phase one to be able to document the feasibility of the potential of whatever the technology is. So for example, the underwater adhesives that we were working on. So determining whether or not it's feasible to make this underwater adhesive and in phase two. And then, in phase two, the phase 1 to phase 2, there's another competition, like I mentioned. That's a higher win rate because there's just generally less companies that you're competing with, probably about a 30% win rate. And so you won't win all those either, right? And so you'll write a proposal, you'll explain your process for what you're going to build and how you're going to build it, and you'll get that in, and it'll be very similar. They'll tell you, the government will give you a solicitation. You'll figure out how to meet the terms and conditions of the solicitation, and then go ahead and get that in there. And then, in this particular phase, again, you're waiting to find out whether or not you win that phase two. If you don't, again, request a debrief. And then if you do, then now you're off the races, and you're building a prototype system. Generally, $1 million to $2 million is what you get to do that work. Maybe it's a 12 to 21 months, or 24 months, depending on the agency. How much funding and how much time you get. But now your job is to build a prototype, and so at the end of that, don't think that it's got to be as mature of a product as your iPhone or your Android. You're really looking at probably a TRL 5, technology readiness level 5 or 6, depending on who it is that is issuing this solicitation. And so, TRL 5, TRL 6, you can Google that. But basically, you're just building a prototype system that will later be matured. But ultimately, what you're trying to do is develop technology that doesn't exist. There'll probably be an engineering phase afterwards. And I like to think of, kind of science and technologies where you're proving out the technology itself. And then the next phase is really the engineering phase, where you're trying to make things maybe waterproof or dirt proof or whatever it is. And so don't worry if it's not 100% on the end of the phase two. You'll probably need some more work before you actually transition into the program of record. So, I guess probably the last thing I'll mention, because I hear about this a lot of times, is, hey, we want to get to a program of record. That's kind of nirvana for a lot of companies. As a government program manager, I'll tell you, a program of record really just means that there's funding allocated for it, and there's a big R requirement. So you've gone through the acquisition cycle, and you figure that out. So some programs of records are large, some are not. And so, just because you won a program record, don't think that that's going to be, tons and tons of money. It really depends on the technology and what you're working on. So I guess that's probably all I wanted to talk to you today about, was really just kind of give you a sense of what's going on in the SBIR process and what we're working on right now. We're always looking for partners. If we're successful in winning these, we'll probably, need to add some staff. So that's exciting times. We'll start putting out job recs and things like that, and hopefully bringing some great people to kind of continue to grow the organization. Again, our focus here is really on developing cutting edge technologies that are useful on the battlefield. We're also very excited to put technologies and products in the hands of the warfighter, and then eventually sustain those technologies too. Because while we can develop the next cool phone or adhesive or whatever it is, if you don't actually field the capability and then actually sustain it, it's not really useful. So with that, I guess that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope this was useful for you. Have a great day.